All right, I do want to start talking about the actual state of the Counter-Strike scene. So I want to bring Jason in here to talk about how it is from the org side, because obviously the esports winter's been really tough. You are in a unique situation where you're running a Counter-Strike team, a North American team in a scene that is mostly dominated in Europe. So as do you feel like esports winter is lifting at this point in time? And how has your perception of running a business in Counter-Strike been going in 2024?
That's a great question, and it's definitely a long answer. After doing this for 21 years, I've had the fortune or the misfortune, I guess you could say, of enduring a few market corrections. And for years, we anticipated this market correction. I mean, let's be honest, anyone with any common sense or economic sense whatsoever, when they're seeing some of the valuations that teams were raising at and some of the other groups around esports, it just screamed bubble and it screamed market correction. So we tried to better position ourselves to be ready for that for the esports winter. We're out hunting and knitting big thick jackets over here and kind of preparing for it. And I have to be honest, it's now worse than I thought it was going to be. Behind the scenes, from the capital markets to the sponsorship dollars to the league revenues, it is absolutely abysmal, just being honest. For Counter-Strike specifically, and we can go more into this, I'm an eternal optimist. I try to have a long-term view of things. I've studied a lot of people smarter than me and wiser than me in business. And when you make decisions, you need to kind of have a chess type of mindset where you've got a first order effect, a second order effect, a third order effect, so on and so forth. Too many people for way too long in esports only worry about first order effects, especially Valve, by the way, but we'll probably get to that. And as I'm looking at the trajectory of Counter-Strike economically for teams and therefore for players and the rest of the ecosystem, I definitely have concerns. It's no surprise to anyone who's followed the ecosystem for a while that even during the esports winter, Counter-Strike was doing comparatively well. And that, to a large part, was due to the fact that it was built on the foundation of betting sponsorships. Betting sponsorships, obviously, are pretty ubiquitous throughout the Counter-Strike scene, driving $2, $3, $4 million a year to organizations that are fortunate enough to work with good partners. Being from North America, that has been a competitive disadvantage of ours for years because for regulatory reasons and other things, the larger betting companies generally are hesitant to work with North American teams. Yeah, we have FanDuel in North America. We have DraftKings. Yeah, and we actually do work with PrizePicks for our Counter-Strike Revival series, and we're super grateful for their partnership there. But if you look around the ecosystem, you don't see a lot of the larger international betting firms working in North America. And then secondary, when you look at what has provided any sense of economic stability over the past few years in the Counter-Strike scene, at least for the majority of the tier one organizations, and it's been the league revenue deals. I know a lot of people, including some people on the show, probably don't fall on the same side as I do when it comes to deriving economic stability through such type of deals. But Valve
let me just cut into it because Jason, sorry, because not everybody's going to be familiar with Counter-Strike who's listening to this. So what Jason is referring to, guys, is that there used to be a pseudo partnered league, so kind of it wasn't totally a closed league like you might be used to seeing in other esports circuits, such as Riot circuits, for example. There were ways to get in via open qualifier, but ESL, particularly with like EPL and Blast, were running leagues that had partner teams. Among them was Complexity. And they were paying revenue share to the partner teams.
This millions of dollars a year as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
This year,
so I mean, this was providing a solid foundation of revenue for those tier one partners. Now, the argument is it's not aspirational. You're gatekeeping the scene, and I totally get all those arguments. For my position, I'm generally worried about economic stability and growing my business, but I totally understand the counter argument that Valve has kind of fallen on. We're like, no, we're not going to do these partner leagues anymore.
This was an announcement that Valve made this year, guys, basically saying that these partner leagues were no longer going to be allowed, which we talked about, I believe, on our State of Counter-Strike last year with Tommy, aka Lurpus. And I think, his take has been publicly that he thinks this is going to be very bad for teams because now there's no incentive for the league structures for Blast and ESL to share the revenue.
100%.
We'll get to the recent ESL announcement of them attempting to do that in a little bit. But what do you agree with that take, Jason?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of where we're at. So I'm just kind of laying the foundation of Counter-Strike from the economics.
Yeah.
Because like we can get into the different rules and the state of CS2 and a lot of these things, and I'm happy to get into that. But it all springs from the economics, because if the economics completely fail, as we've seen in esports winter leagues completely fail, Overwatch, some of these other leagues that have really been struggling. So I'm laying the foundation for kind of where I see the Counter-Strike economics right now, at least from my perspective.
So also when you talk about the partner payments, one other thing that I've heard is going down is sticker revenue for the teams too, which has been
I'm getting there, Monty. I'm getting there. You're fucking spoilering me.
I'll shut up. All right.
Well, I'm laying this foundation. You've got the economics primarily built on betting sponsors, league revenue share, and as everyone knows, making the majors is a massive deal, because when you make a major, you get your sticker in the game. It drives meaningful revenue. It's been like that for years. Teams live and die. Some teams live and die by whether or not they make the major. So it's a very emotional thing. You spend a year focusing your efforts in Counter-Strike on making sure you make the major. You do your financial projections. You have to assume that you're going to make the major, and if you don't, that spreadsheet catches on fire. So those three things have kind of been the general underpinning. Of course, you've got sponsorships and those sorts of things, but they're very fickle. In the marketing budgets of many companies have been withdrawn quite a bit as the global macro has changed. Interest rates have gone up. There's a lot of uncertainty just around the different wars around the world, and companies are just not wanting to spend in esports right now. We're a little bit of what I call the redheaded stepchild chucked in the back closet. What I'm hearing now is, generally speaking, across the board, a lot of the betting companies are tired of the arms race that they created, and they're looking to lower the deals as those expire. What I'm also learning now, as we all have this year, is that Valve has a different opinion about the partner leagues. So the entire structure of those has changed, and teams specifically, and thus players, because we're the ones that have to compete for players and pay the players, will no longer be taking part in those revenue share agreements as we have over the past few years. And I'm also sad to report that really since the Paris majors, stickers and the revenue driven by majors has completely fallen off a cliff. The Paris major was a notable exception the last game in CS2, and the numbers blew off the charts, some 2, 3, 4x of your average major. And therefore, a lot of groups that aren't quite as cynical as I might be started doing their financial budgeting based off this new paradigm of multi-million-dollar stickers.
They did that thing where they acted like it was always going to hit that valuation.
Yeah, and I'm like, there's no way in hell it's always going to hit that.
And they were like, we can buy these players because we'll get it back by getting the stickers. But the problem is, if the stickers is a third of the amount you get, you don't get that back. By the way, even that, put a pin in that, someone, because that's one topic no one ever brings up. One of the maddest things, I'm sure Richard will have a take on later, is we still do the stickers. And bro, me and you know what, fuck it, let's just do this one now as a sidebar. Richard, one of the maddest things ever is me and you lived through this in football, mate. In football, famously, when you're a boy, you want the newest jersey, don't you? If you're the Newcastle fan, you want yours. I want my fucking Robbie Fowler Liverpool jersey. But famously, when you go to your mum, if you're not a rich kid, you go, the new season's out. When she goes to the shop, you better just get the money from her at home, because if she goes to the shop and she sees that shirt looks almost identical to last season's shirt, but it costs £50, she's going to go, you've already got that shirt. Now, the problem with the stickers to this day is they are the same logo. They don't even, they maybe have like a slight outline, or they might put, something around Shanghai or something. It's the logo. So all you do is just buy in the Na'Vi logo 15 times. Now, listen, even the biggest Na'Vi fan ever eventually gets bored of that. Like, it's just, the problem is, it doesn't even, I even think that part's just a weird one. I don't know why we're leaving that one. Like, isn't that obvious? It should just have something unique. Like, I was even saying, by the way, you can even do a digital aspect. You could have a component where you buy the sticker and it makes a clip play of the team lifting a trophy or something, or fucking frag highlight or something. But I think that's mad that we're expecting people. What we're saying is, if you're a fan of CS, you can support us by just buying almost an identical logo again. Like, that's like, you fucking actually remember that famous saying, you can share a sheep many times, you can skin it only once. You're not giving us a chance. Like, no one wants those stickers, bro.
Yeah, I was really hoping they were gonna
it's a bummer, isn't it?
put the whatchamacallit on the weapon. My brain just stopped working.
The charm.
The charm. for the teams.
Yeah,
and I
we had
tweeted
this
that
with
out,
gloves
but
when gloves
that
were
didn't happen.
introduced. Like, why aren't the teams getting customizable gloves and stuff? And it's like, I mean,
I would have sold. Because think about it, if I've got all the logos already, then of course I'm going to buy the gloves. That's the next thing to buy as a fan. Yeah,
exactly. And it's a win for Valve because they make more money, right? New products to sell. It's kind of a win-win. But we saw sticker revenues decline Paris to Copenhagen by 75% ish, and it depends which capsule. Some
the diminishing
better.
returns on stickers are actually insane.
In China, from what we are seeing, I mean, it's still ongoing. It's probably going to be 30 to 40% less than Copenhagen, and it's still ongoing.
So compared to
it's abysmal.
Blast, it might be something like a tenth of what the actual stickers was, something insane. As you said, people absolutely at the end of 2023, Jason definitely went to investors and said, "Hey, look, if between the partner money, which we talked about, is going, and the stickers, we can literally. I want $3 million to go make a super team, and then it's going to turn out you might get like $1 million back or something crazy."
100%. So that's just kind of, laying out the basics of where I see it. And like I said, long term, I remain an optimist. I think the thesis of esports and the eyeballs and the value of the demographic has not decreased. We just haven't figured out how to properly monetize it. But right now, and heading into the next, call it 12 to 18 months, I think we're going to see a fairly sharp correction for Counter-Strike. That's going to see some orgs drop Counter-Strike. Some Counter-Strike orgs just go out of business. I think player salaries and buyouts are going to correct. To be more in line, I guess, with the other esports that we've seen around esports winter. We've kind of had our little cave with a nice little fire in Counter-Strike due to the things that I just mentioned, and the fire is slowly going out. So I do think the next year and a half is going to be a pretty difficult time for Counter-Strike. Will Counter-Strike survive? Yes, absolutely. But I do think we're gonna be seeing a market correction that's going to affect everyone in the ecosystem. I'm optimistic that we'll be able to figure it out as we have in the past, but definitely a bit bearish on the economics of the Counter-Strike scene for the next 18 months.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing either, because I mean, obviously this was really inflated. And there have been, basically, like you're saying, all of the economic situations have changed or lowered. But that doesn't mean that you can't run a healthy business around this. It's just that the players may end up deriving more of their income from prize money potentially rather than the vast salaries.
Almost certainly that is what the other angle that people won't realize is, in theory, prize money for players is the thing going to go crazy in 2025, because, for example, PGL's already said they're doing $1 million tournaments, which is the prize pool of the major. So in theory, imagine a world where, like, if you're a pro player, if people even match that with the clones and the kind of eights, you might have like 10 chances at like $1 million, like $500,000 first place or something. So the prize money now is going to go crazy, which, by the way, does infer what you said, Monty. As someone from League, you can appreciate this, because I can tell you, even though Lurpus is a die-hard Counter-Strike person, he hates prize money, because his logic is League did it right. They already give up all the salary. It's like sports. Why would you then give them the prize money as well? It's like that at that point, you're just giving all the money to the pro player. Like, the team's not getting anything. Which is it? Either you give them the high salary, or you say play for the money, and it's an entrepreneur poker type world. At the moment in CS, we do both, and we have less money in the first place.
Prize money only helps the broader ecosystem if it allows the organizations to lower salaries and invest those dollars in other ways to grow their brand, to grow their following, whatever that might be. Prize money generally goes 80-90% to the players, which is great for the players. But if there's not a better spreading of the money that's being invested into an overall ecosystem, and you're starving out the orgs, people are like, why'd that org close, or why'd that org leave this game? It's like, you need to see the whole picture. Like, it's kind of the rising tide doesn't raise all boats if there's an arms race for prize money. And now you've got some of that prize money in the Valve ratings and everything else. I don't think it's a healthy development. I think it's taking a step back. I think we're going back. And that's why I've repeatedly said I am a believer in the structures that we were trying to build. Well, we did build a TSL and Blast. I completely understand the counter arguments. Whether it be, kind of the fact that some people saw it as a walled garden, and I completely understand that, because I've been on the outside of many walls, and some people saw it as gatekeeping. Some people saw it as damaging to the aspirational nature of Counter-Strike as an esport. And we can also get into the removal of the RMRs when we talk about aspiration. But for me, the prize money doesn't solve many issues on the broader scale. I'm happy if my players are making a ton of money, they're happy or whatever. But if orgs start going out of business and there's less opportunities, there's less academies, there's less programs like what we're doing with the Prize Picks Revival Cup, because the economics of the esport don't make sense. You've got a small generation of players that are going to buy a couple Porsches and go out and have a hell of a good time, but the esport itself and the longevity of it suffers.
Yeah, I mean, I got some thoughts on this. I mean, so first of all, on the gloves and the charms thing, I look like there's I know exactly why Valve won't do it. A lot of people frame it as being like an obvious decision that they should do because then they make money. And you're right, they make money. They would make a ton of money off it, but they look at the bigger picture of the skins economy, which long term makes them more money. And when you understand that, like, from any case that contains a glove skin, you have a 0.26% chance of getting one. And that includes the dog shit ones that are worth less than $100. What they're trying to do is drive the overall scarcity of gloves up, because what we know from all of the studies, and, you know, Activision Blizzard have this as well with their skins, is that if people see a skin in a game, I'm sure you've played a game of CS where some fucking utter loser cretin is saying, drop me your gun so I can have this skin and I will trade it for my non-skin. Like, these worst thing that ever happened to CS. Whatever, anyway. You know, the problem is, if you've got the Cloud9, the Complexity, the FaZe gloves that I bought directly from the store, I have the glove skin box ticked out of all of the skins I can have from all of the games. So I'm not going to open a case looking for a glove skin. I've got mine. I bought mine.
It would be like letting people buy the knife, basically. Right, I see.
Yes, exactly. So listen, great idea. Makes everyone a ton of money. But overall, what does it do to the skins economy? It kind of wrecks the entire premise of the scarcity of items. You know, gloves are about as rare as knives. You know, the non-stat track knives. That's kind of like where they've been placed in the skins economy overall. So that's point number one. The other point, to Jason's point about prize money, is I agree. I think one of the interesting developments was, it was always a given back in the day. Players got 100%. But that was before North American owners fucked the salary paradigm in every hole, like, just made them airtight. It just doesn't even make sense. Like, I get 50 grand a fucking month to play mediocre CS, and I get to keep 95% of the prize money, 90% of the prize money. That's completely insane.
To the players who then also would go, and I'm not doing media.
Exactly, which is why it's always been a bugbear of mine. But again, I don't blame the players. Players are, by and large, morons. And even if they weren't morons, and you dangle a carrot...
Poker face during this whole segment, bro.
Yeah. Ignore everything I say. I do not speak... I'm also going to criticize North American owners in a moment. But
not Jason, though.
But present company is most certainly excluded. But if you dangle the carrot of a ton of fucking money to someone, moron or not, they are going to get theirs. And actually, one of the more destructive forces, bizarrely, in this ecosystem of ours has been the agents who think they are negotiating for soccer players, not Counter-Strike players. And they negotiate long contracts that don't behoove the players for fat salaries that don't behoove the ecosystem. And in that, they're also saying, we better be getting all of our sticker money, plus a share of the organization's sticker money, plus a decent cut of the prize money. And this is simply not sustainable. Now, to that point, I will say, fuck these North American team owners that have come into CS with this. It's a weird combination of, on the one hand, they're not here in earnest. Their intentions are rapacious by nature. But equally as well, they are sort of looking at it like from not profitability, but also they want to kind of have it all make sense. They want the glory to propel the organization to new heights and cash out on that success. And so what they've essentially done, what's broken all of Counter-Strike, all of esports since we welcomed North American owners with VC money into the space and said spend, 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 is that they pay whatever they have to get whatever they think works. And they don't know anything because they are fucking overprivileged morons. Many of them don't even have a decade of experience in the space, and they just think me buy good player, me overpay good player win me trophy, sponsor pay me for trophy win. That is their brain. That is your brain on NA esports. And by the way, none of them could spot a good player if their lives depended on it. So we are paying mediocre shite 40 to 50 grand a month. And this is why, by the way, I've just said it many times. I used to lament the death of NA esports, or back when it was a theoretical. Now I ask ourselves, why do we need them? That's where I've fallen, because unfortunately, for the most part, they are bad for the wider industry. They pump up the money globally, and then it's like you look at something like Mongols, where it's just a bunch of Mongolian kids that have stuck together, worked hard, been coached effectively, and they're getting top 8 at a major. No more excuses, NA. Fuck off. I'm done with you.
Their whole team probably makes less than like the biggest player in NA. You know what I mean?
I think you perfectly.
That entire team is probably paid less than exactly a star.
You perfectly describe one of the biggest problems in esports. There's no barrier of entry. And during the investor-fueled years, call it 2015 to 2020, 2022, it was whoever would pay the most. And things absolutely got out of control. A lot of times, I'll have candid conversations with friends, and they'll be like, back in the day, you guys would win everything. Lately, you guys aren't on the finals of the majors or whatever. And it's just, like, why not, Mike? Because I'm trying to fucking build a business that's going to last another 20 years.
Yeah.
Could I go out and raise a few $1,000,000 and go hire all this all-star team? And yeah, probably, but that isn't really the economically intelligent thing to do. Again, your first order, second order, third order consequences of things. And I think you hit the nail on the head. And Monty said this earlier, where, market corrections and bubble pops are actually good. And we saw that with the internet back in the day. Holy shit! I don't know. You guys are old enough to remember the .com bowl.
Yeah, we were there.
The Super Bowl, where every damn commercials, pets.com, ants.com, tires.com, like every damn .com, and then the whole market exploded. That out of that, we've got some really big, successful internet-based companies, obviously. And I am still of the opinion that the ones who can survive market corrections like this will succeed, but we're always clawing an uphill battle because we're in a sport with no barrier of entry. There's no buying an NFL franchise or, a soccer, football club over in Europe to where now we can start negotiating a good faith for what are the salary caps? How do we split revenue with players? It's just been a mass arms race, whoever can raise the most money and spend the most money. And that's inflated everything to where I absolutely, and I saw a comment in the chat. It's absolutely not the player's fault. Like, if I was in their shoes, I would absolutely do the same thing.
You gotta get the bag,
50
man.
grand a month, and I want 90%. Like, why would I not? But
I'd also like to think they could understand how
lasting
to offer additional
ecosystem
value.
create.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'm not saying the player's completely, guilt-free of it by any means, but I also understand if I was that age and I'd worked that hard, I would soak it for all it was worth.
Sure. Yeah.
As well. So, but yeah, I think heading forward on the economics, I think it's going to be challenging, but a lot of times challenging is good, and it washes away things that need to be washed away. Let the bubble pop, and there's still a lot of people that genuinely do care about the scene that I think are going to do their best to remain involved. We're certainly one of them. And see what happens on the other side. But I definitely do have concerns about the next, call it, year and a half, 2 years. And that time frame is we're kind of realigning how things are done. And Valve has stepped up with some of the new rules. And sometimes I think Valve doesn't think of those second order, third order consequences, because they're just like, oh, well, these team leagues, everyone doesn't have a part. We're just going to wipe that away. It's like, that's fine. The analogy I like to use is, let's say you're a small business. You've got some liquid trading stock and you want to acquire another company. okay, well, we're just going to use some stock and go buy that company because then we don't have to dip into cash reserves to buy this company. Now we've got another company, but all the founders and all the employees or whatever get our stock. And the first order consequences look like, great, we just added a company to our portfolio. This is awesome. Without realizing the second order and third order consequences. Now all those new people who just got your stock go to the market and they sell your stock. So what happens to your stock price? Your stock price falls. Well, that's not good. That's the second order consequence. What's a third order consequence? If your stock price falls, the company now can't raise any additional capital to grow and scale the company at the same price. And depending if you're on an exchange, it can be very problematic is what I'm saying. So Valve sometimes makes these decisions being like, oh, we don't like that. That's bad. So we're just going to come in, change the whole thing. Maybe the first order consequence is good, but you don't see the second and third order consequences. And I think we've seen that a lot around esports. And I definitely think we're going to see that heading out in Counter-Strike. And I thought that was really interesting, the point you made about the gloves, and I think that is a really astute observation. But I do think that if Valve's going to come in and make sweeping changes without understanding the second, third order consequences for all the people in the ecosystem and all the different entities, we're going to be in trouble if they don't come up with new ways to monetize.
Well,
maybe it'll be with charms, or maybe it'll be something else.
And that's the counterpoint.
But your esport won't last forever if you just walk haphazardly through, being like, making decisions that affect the entire ecosystem and sweeping unilateral kind of moves.
And that's the counterpoint. Why isn't there in the skins boxes that you've got, M4, AK, AWP, gloves, charms, why aren't they inventing something specifically to show loyalty to an esports brand? Why can't there just be an esports slot? Whatever that might look like. It could have been gloves, that's taken. It could have been charms, that's taken. Pretty sure Valve can invent something else. And that just feels like, in Dota, you get like, you get a bunch of in-game like cosmetic effects, like when you TP out and stuff. Around about every major and every TI, you can buy a kind of capsule that gives you like stickers of the players and everything else. And then like when I TP, it'll show the fucking, complexity logo or whatever in the animation as I go back to base or whatever. So why can't there be something for like that for CS is the question. And the answer is there absolutely can. It's just weird that charms, which nobody wants and are a fucking eyesore, like
I also think that those are turned on in the major as well. Like it's just distracting. It's annoying. Well, it can even cover up things on the fucking screen. Like, it could be a little guy in the background of the charm covers. Like it's nightmare fuel.
Listen, for me, I would just Valve would never agree to this, obviously. But if I'm running a tournament, skins are default. There just aren't any. Yeah. I don't want to have to negotiate the fucking raft of problems that come with players putting racist names on a skin, inappropriate fucking slogans on a bomb.
Thorin has a small dick, that's just rude. Private information.
Yeah, private information, told in confidence, right? No, but like also, I mean,
I was called that day.
Why is Donk, like a 17-year-old, got a bomb called Blow Me No Hands? Like, I don't need to see that.
Read the room. What country you from, mate? Read the room. Just put. Maybe I've been called.
Was it rain and not dark?
No, I'm just saying. What country is he from? I wouldn't have some about bombs if I was in crazy.
Let me shift gears.
Go for it.
Sorry, Rich, are you done? I didn't mean to.
No. Well, I'm just saying. Like, there's room in the game for something that is esports exclusive, that also makes Valve money, but also makes the teams money, and also makes the fans feel they can engage and show support to their CS teams. The fact that Valve haven't created that shows shows what we all know, that they don't like the orgs. They've never liked orgs. They've never thought orgs were necessary to the ecosystem.
100%.
See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.